Well, good evening, everybody. This one is a bit earlier than when we normally do this show, although at the same time, we're about 22 hours late. I was trying to be a little more regimented this year and go on Wednesdays. But being Valentine's Day, took the day off, so we're on tonight. But we got the Daytona duels after, so we're going to keep this one kind of short and sweet for everyone. Obviously, myself, Kyle. To catch up, we did this right before the year got underway in the beginning of January. Lots happened since. And to be honest, I kind of wanted to get something before the winter series because the whole sport had just a huge spurt of entries in the first three races, which was wild. So we've had a lot of news that came out on our end most recently this week. Super excited that we were finally able to get our deal announced in public that we're going to be streaming the CKNA Nationals that'll remain on the schedule for later this year. The Spring Nationals in Charlotte, the Summer Nationals, and then, of course, the Grand Nationals 8 in Newcastle. That puts, I was just counting our schedule. I actually had a post up about 30 minutes ago. I went up, pulled down, screwed up, had all 41 dates that we have. I need to fix a couple errors on it, but with 41 races on the year, when we count the 7 MCC club races, that's still a bunch of traveling dates over 30, which is cool. For us, it's a lot of racing kind of all around, but the regular schedule for everybody staying the same. We're just picking up a little more, picking up more regional series. Our national schedule is pretty similar. I mean, the only two nationals extra is the two CKNA stuff. And that weekend is going to be pretty cool, I think, because for viewers, we're going to have CKNA Spring Nationals all day long Saturday, and that'll lead right into the Norberg Pro Kart Invitational Saturday night. Even though CKNA is going to run to the lights, it should end still with a good enough time for viewers to kind of switch over and catch probably the pre-final and then the main show for the Norberg Invitational. If you're watching a bit of both, if you're watching Norberg Steel, that'll start around I think 7. But yeah, the entries were wild. I think that's the first thing to touch on. 290 at SCUSA, pushing 200 at the Rock Race, pushing 200 at the first Rotax weekend. For the month of January, for whatever reason, everything in the U.S. was really, really big. It dropped off a little bit. The Rotax weekend, we kind of expected to drop off by the second. It still stayed pretty decent, but the SCUSA Winter Series kind of got back to normal numbers in February. So I don't know. There's been a couple of spurts in the chart that in talking with series promoters and engine importers in the industry, from Eric and Tom with IAMI to Mark Coates USPKS to Rock with Mike Burrell to Stars with Christian and Joe and all of them. Everyone's trying to kind of look for trends and stuff, and I think January caught a lot of people off guard. And of course, it hit it at a really opportune time for the MG and Avinco guys because they're transitioning to the newly updated MG tires. So that's what's made this upcoming weekend for the Texas Sprint Racing Series a crazy, weird blend of the old style, the new style. Rotax even had that with not having enough rain tires. So it's been a busy start to the year for everybody, and basically 6 straight weeks ending on week 6 right here for the teams that are still down for the Rock Florida Winter Tour. So for our case, it was a little bit easier because we were off for the Rock weekend, but we've still got a lot that we're beefing up on. But anyway, I got feedback, Kyle, from our first show that I still talk too much and you don't talk enough. So off to you. First thoughts here since we were last on the air.
Well, it's okay. I tend to have less thoughts than you do, anyways. But yeah, busy weekends. As you said, we did have those weekends off. We have this weekend off. We're back at it next weekend for TSRS. But yeah, the numbers in January were pretty huge for the SCUSA Winter Series. I feel like it was a little bit like that last year, where we kind of had the the jump from Supernats. Or like this year we had Albanese, coming over. Last year we had Stols Hermanos, and then we didn't for the second round. But yeah, overall, I think the SCUSA Winter Series went extremely well. I wasn't at the Rotex stuff. You were. But overall in the racing, Xander, how have you felt the year has gone so far?
I mean, the Rotax stuff looks really good. off the rip racing parity wise, and you're going to have that when um, Rotax, the newer engine guys haven't had for that long. You don't, it's not been adulterated like the KA, the X30, and the Rock GP stuff is. Could it get to that level? Might it stay pretty, even? Who knows? I think the jury's still out on that just off of time. I think there's a lot of people that are believing on it, which is pretty cool. So if it stays really even, that's great. I think it has a good chance of staying even, you know, parity wise if it stays at just three big events on the year and regionals, which it seems like that's kind of what the plan is. Um, but I'm curious to see what the CKNA spring nats looks like racing wise, because I still think that Shifter is the winter series. We don't have that usual crowd, but I think when we get to the pro tour, with what the crowd will look like at Stars, what it'll look like at USPK, I think the Shifter racing is going to be pretty respectful. The winter series last year, this year seems to be a little rougher in Shifter throughout the grid. But I think it's just because you kind of have guys running near guys that they normally aren't around. But when you have that kind of consistent crew, it seems like there'll be some respect. The X30 side, I think we're at the same problem point that we were at in the summer last year, where I feel like these guys race each other enough. Same going into the Rotax weekend, same going even into the Rock weekend, that they should be having a better dialogue than what they do. And that's a bit disappointing because I think that they all are at the front pretty professional. Granted, um, and when I say that, I'm talking obviously about like Norberg versus Nepvu, Norberg versus DeTulio. Um, those guys. I don't think those guys really roughed up the RPG guys bad, but in general, last year it was Joe and Ryan against Harley, and to me, what I told them, and I don't think they agreed, and maybe I'm, fighting an argument that you don't ever win. But you can see it in the shifter guys where they have such a good respect for each other, whether they like each other or not, that they come to a term on how they're going to race for the most part through the top 10, top 15, and the races end up being we see them chirp each other in the interviews, but they at least talk to each other. They work things out. The beefs don't just like stay hidden and talk smack in their own little posse. Like they're pretty mature about it. And the X30 age group isn't far off it, but it's a couple of years younger, and maybe that's it. I don't know. That's the thing that kind of disappoints me a little bit about the racing. The other part is that, and hopefully when we get to Stars, when we get to SCUSA, and I don't know where the USPKS main events are. They're normally pretty long. But by having longer sessions with the alternate format for SCUSA, with the alternate format for Stars, the other part of the racing that is frustrating is when you have a guy kind of split the pack up by just not racing smart early. In this past weekend, it was Dalton on Saturday and it was Santiago Fernandez on Sunday. I know for a fact at least Dalton realized his mistake, and that was really cool. I didn't talk to Santi. I don't know if he realized uh, his mistake of racing, in my opinion, like it was the midfield when he was up front and ruined the pack up front and kind of robbed us of anyone else besides the three guys at the front of the race by the end having a shot at the win. So I don't, that that is like a prime scenario for me where if multiple guys kind of, went up to Fernandez and whether or not he takes it or not, is kind of on him. But, throw an arm around him, say, hey, Santi, great run this weekend that you were so fast. Here's where you screwed up. This is you did some stuff we normally don't do, and this is why we don't do it, and this is how we play. And if you get up here again, this is what we'd like to see from you, instead of all just kind of going back to their own tents. And again, that might be a bygone era. I don't know if it is or not, but I mean, my urge after that X30 main was to go over to Santi and say exactly that. And maybe it's easier for us from, not only to see it from the broadcast side, but to go and talk to these guys about it, because when you get into an adult class, you should have, I feel like, that standing guard. So I wish that there was more of that. And I don't know why that hasn't developed, even though over the last few years there's been more and more older guys getting opportunities to continue to race in that group, um, and racing against each other a lot more, to be honest, than where they did in years past. So it's always kind of, I guess, been that way looking back. I don't know. It might be rose-colored glasses on history, but the in general, the parity looks good on paper, right? I mean, we've had a different winner. Um, the only two-time winner at all this year is Bonilla. Diego's got to win. Harley won the first rock race. Obviously Ryan got to win. DeTulio's got to win. Brandon Carr got his first win. So um, that's cool to see that we have a lot of different guys that are getting. We knew they were up front. Now the results show that we have a really stacked grid.
I'm lost. When did Benio win twice?
Or sorry, you're right. He did not win twice. My mistake.
Yeah,
He won
I think.
once.
Well, it's funny as I think last night in the podcast, I think Emery or Alex made that same mistake and said that. So it's the second time in two
That
days
well,
where I've just been
I'll
like,
take credit.
"What?"
I told him that. I'm mixed up.
Uh,
Yeah, Vanilla didn't win twice. I mean, I guess if you go back to Supernats, but no, this year you're right. He won once. He was once, and then our Rotax weekend was what was it?
Garrison.
First day Ramos, then Garrison, and then what did it go down to? Ingrata after Frankie's penalty. Yeah, you're right. All single winners this year on the single speed side. Shifter stuff, we just don't have all the grid together.
Yeah.
We have guys out west racing challenge. Kyle Wick wins one. Vasile wins the other. Rock Morgado sweeps. Formal sweeps the first weekend. This weekend Morgado gets it done. So that's cool. That Mateus is running as good as he is. So kudos to him. I'm sure there's tag guys that are very happy that he's running as good as he is, because that just bodes well for bragging rights. It's somewhat like going to a different discipline. So, but yeah, you're right. Bonilla one win. I don't know why I'm thinking two.
Yeah. Uh, talking about the guys needing to have a dialogue, just one thing on that is, like you said, Dalton definitely saw after the race the mistakes, but later in the race, what I noticed was when he let Ryan by. Something I thought immediately in that moment is like, that's honestly really smart, because Ryan's like one of the guys next 30 that'll take a mental note of, okay, let me by when he needed to. He was smart, and Ryan's going to remember that. So that's something those guys definitely have to keep in mind. And I think having a dialogue with those guys, because we see, like, over last year, I remember the race where Blake Nash was leading, and they wouldn't let him just lead. Like, you have to earn respect in X30. What? It doesn't seem like that's really a problem in shifter, like you mentioned. Like, I don't. That's not
Well,
something that.
in the X30 side, it part of it's because you can pass so much easier. In shifter, it's a lot harder to make a pass. So there's a lot more of patience, and you're just I can go by you. I can dive bomb you 5 times a lap. I'm not going to. I actually talked to some of the other guys in that moment when at the end of that weekend when they wouldn't follow Blake, and my gut call, what I said over the broadcast and what I thought was happening, was they just wouldn't follow him. Their defense, like Joe or Ryan, or I don't think I talked to Mateus about it, but was that he would get in front, and then he'd make a mistake within a couple of corners and just slide a little bit, drop a tire or something, and then you can't always see that from our TV cams. So maybe that was happening where he'd be great. He could follow him the whole time, and you get out front and you make a mistake. I remember talking with Alex Stanfield a little bit about it last year, how he's like, I don't care that I've got the number one plate or reigning champ, or I'm running around guys that should respect me, should follow me. He's like, if I screw up a corner, I expect to get passed when I'm leading a pack like that. So that would have been a good case about it. But yeah, you don't see that as much in shifter. It's well, you do, but it's different. You don't see them probably the first time a guy's up there maybe give way and open. If he sends it on him, like crowd him down versus let him through. Whereas X30, you just see the guy kind of get shuffled. You see it a lot in the first like 2 laps in an X30 race when there's someone kind of unknown, or hasn't run up front consistently. they're going to get dive bombed. And there's not really a good way to avoid that besides just taking it in. I mean, you can do one of two things. You can defend for your life for the first couple of laps and piss guys off, and hopefully something happens, you break away, and you can run good. I mean, look at what happened to Jacob Kolar at the January race. Qualifies pole, and whether it was mistakes or not, it might have been the same thing as what we ended up being the case with Nash in less respect. He got dive bomb, dive bomb, dive bomb, dive bomb, shuffled back. Second day, he's fighting forward. And the pole is like one of the worst spots to start in an X30 race in general, regards of like the respect of whether you've been there or not, because you can only go backwards. And it's such a momentum game through the mentality of the drivers in the pack of, if you're going forwards, like if I could start anywhere in a main event for a single speed race, it'd probably be like fifth. It's safe, it's on the inside. You normally make up one spot on the first lap, so you're kind of moving forward, and then then you have to really make a mistake to go backwards. Whereas the pole man, I mean, you can only go so fast, and everyone's going to stay behind you, so they're just naturally going to want to shuffle you back. And so now you go from neutral or positive momentum to negative momentum, and you have to get the momentum positive again. But on the respect side, it's like a guy's got to go up there and get beaten up by the pack a little bit, a couple of times, and then finally by like the second, third time, they respect him. And then you have the opposite effect where, like, if the guy does throw punches back in his first race, sometimes you have Santi's incident there where him and Harley get into it. I mean, Harley and Ryan got into it in Harley's first race at Orlando last year. So the second Pro Tour, just doored him out of the way on the hairpin. Sometimes you go into you hear about it all the time. A guy's in like a prison yard. What do you do when you go to prison for the first day? You go find the biggest guy and you punch him in the nose. So yeah, I don't know. Either way, it's just it's frustrating to call these races because they could be so good and they should be so good, and at least on Sunday and really even Saturday too, with the longer mains, putting about 5 more laps on both of those races, some of that stuff is going to go to the wayside. Hopefully, drivers will think a little more and realize it, and maybe it'll take a race or two to adjust and understand that you can be more patient in the first few laps. But we had 5 laps to that, even just 3 laps to that Sunday main. Totally different race, fantastic finish. We had probably 5 laps to Saturday with how Harley was tracking down Bonilla, different race, probably a battle at the end. And I'm trying to remember back from the first month. I don't think it would have changed much in the wet with DeTulio. He was pretty even back to Carr and Kolar. I think if Kolar started good, he probably would have got to Carr with a little bit of a longer main. That was actually a really short main, come to think of it, because it was like 11 minutes. We were worried about the track flooding. So if that goes the full 18 minutes, does Jacob Kolar drive all the way through and get to the leader? Maybe. And then the first main with with Ryan driving away, I don't know. You normally, if it's a Ryan walk away, you normally don't have someone that can track him down. The only guy that's done that is Turney. So that may or may not have changed how things go. But hopefully, with a little bit longer on the X30 side, that'll clean it, and maybe they'll adjust, and we don't have to watch these races just get torched in the first few laps.
Yeah, I was literally during the Sunday race last weekend telling Emery and Alex while we're watching it, while Ryan was running down the 3 KRs, I was like, it was a timed race. I was like, you add 12 more minutes to this, and it's like Ryan's there, and then the race completely changes. So
Yeah.
so with the format changes, which we'll talk about later, that would have been a better race. But speaking of Joe Turney, a little bit of what I wanted to talk about was, we talked about the different winners this year, completely different winners throughout the entire winners series is in the start of the year. You and I were literally talking last week about Supercross, and we always talk about the parallels between Supercross and karting. In the Supercross right now, like that's usually how their year starts, right? Like they usually have 4 different winners, 5 different winners, and then somebody comes in and dominates the rest of the year. Well, we're in the same boat in karting right now, but we still have one guy yet to show up that might throw a wrench into things and might start dominating. So, how do you think Joe's going to come in here and just start killing everybody? What do you think?
Well, the Tulio said something pretty interesting. He's like, last year really was like the first ever full year he's done. Last year was the first full year stateside for Harley, first full year stateside for Carr. Not first full year for Donovan, but first year starting to run good, and he didn't even run the full year. So if you look at the race winners, a lot of them, this is like they're in a lot better form than the year before. And not that Joe's not in good form, but if anything, you want to do a supercross comparison, he's Tomac. He's
Yeah.
coming off an injury with less seat time. Now, granted, anyone at Joe's level, if you've got a really good baseline, and when I say baseline, I mean years and years of driving every single weekend like he's had, or close to it. The last few years being a factory guy, it won't take him long. He'll be up to speed pretty instantly. But for the other guys, I think they're going to elevate. So, and right now it's not like anything's being held back from the Kart Republic guys that they want to keep to make Joe win. Not that they would, but there's no reason to hold them back. That they're going to focus on making those guys as fast as possible. Carr, Netvu, and DeTulio. So with Joe's schedule, he comes in. He's going to run the full USPKS. He's going to run the remaining 2 Pro Tours. He will not be at Orlando because there's a conflict. I don't know which race they're sending him to, but in the schedule they've got for him to kind of go all around the world and race Europe, race here, he doesn't get to do Pro Tour Orlando. So they're going to try and win the USPKS Championship. Ricard's words to me was like, well, we won the Pro Tour last year, so let's see if we can win the other one. Then we win both US, X30 titles. So he won't and the 2 Pro Tours, they're not confirmed. I wouldn't see a reason why they wouldn't bring him with the money up there, but in his case, yeah, we'll see. He might come in. I don't know. But I think the other guys are better than last year for sure.
Yeah, the Tulio winning the championship, that's pretty huge. Before last night's podcast, I know you were talking to our guys, about, last year when he moved to Inter MS, everybody kind of questioned that decision. When you put in Supercross terms, I mean, they're not, it's not a factory team. That's what they'd call a works team in Supercross. So, I mean, and running 3 different chassis last year, and just Tulio's journey, and how far that team has come. Like, you see it now, like the tent is awesome, the branding is awesome. I I think his story coming to this point is really cool. And going into the Pro Tour, like, I think he's somebody that could really give Joe a run for his money, and Norberg. And that Norberg call out in Winter Series 1, uh, when he said he still needed one more guy to beat, like, if that doesn't hype you up for the rest of the year, oh my gosh.
Yeah, that part's cool. I mean, Inter MS was kind of on I mean, that's a very quick track. International motorsport and what Carlos has had. Um, that's been what you see of a lot of smaller shops on the West Coast and the East Coast, where they're so far removed from the central parts of the country that travel into a regular national tour, regional tour, whatever, it's impossible. So they were a winter tour team, maybe a Vegas team, running OTK. Didn't have the coolest branding, didn't have top drivers, just kind of ran guys as they came. And honestly, talking with Carlos and congratulating him, I mean, he gave a lot of the credit to the Tulia. Now, a lot of money's been invested. There's no question there. I mean, they've got they're starting to do their own engines. They started that at Supernat, so they were pretty good off the jump there. Put in a lot of testing, bought a new rig, rebranded. Made the tent look nice. I mean, the whole 9 yards. You can tell, there's resources being put into the team. And you can see it with the fact that they're doing a full arrive and drive F4 series. Those cars aren't cheap in karting terms, at least. They're cheap in car racing terms. That's a lot of money. But money doesn't just, buy you wins. There's plenty of guys who roll up in nicer setups and spend more money buying engines and spend more money buying go-karts. So for Ally to go there and elevate a team, I think that's a big testament to him. It's nice to have the resources they have and to be on a good go-kart, but that's pretty cool. And I think having him come in, being able to live nearby and do a lot of testing and work together with them and, be a professional driver, Carlos gave a lot of credit to him elevating it. And I think it's the same thing that, we're seeing with Trinity. Trinity's been a high class team for years, and now, hopefully with Carr running with them fully, and when Joe comes over, he'll be under there. And it's not like they haven't gotten support, but that's like another team getting the help. I mean, PK Sports, look at PK elevating to take on the Sodi influence. It takes money, but also takes expertise, and to see it pay off for a new team to run up front and win is cool. So yeah, it's a cool story. Carlos is a nice guy. I've known him since I was helping assistant manage the track, so I'm happy for him to have that. But I'm also happy that ADT gets kicked out of KA for Pro Tour because that part. Why don't we go ahead and we'll get into it on the pro show stuff, and we'll come back to some other stuff because that's been the big hot point and something I've lost a lot of sleep over the last few days, last week. So for everyone, I want to go over this a little bit. So for those kind of watching back, we talked about this. If you want to go back and find the specific podcast, it is I don't know the number, but it's a KC Happy Hour podcast in person with Chase Jones, Ray Liberane, Braden Eves, myself, from around July 25th last year. And talks like this have been going on in the pits forever. Even when I talked to Mark Coates, he reminded me David Cole has been pushing to do something professional. The way this format kind of groups everything together, a lot of these ideas have been rolling around the pits for a long time. And talks went around at SummerNets, went to all the race teams. I've talked about it. I'm excited that Scusa's going to do it. Stars is willing to take the leap as well. They're doing it. USPKS is not doing it, so there'll be an alternate option for guys that maybe don't want it or want to double dip or want to run against some of the guys that will double dip. As they mentioned in the press release, they've still got good prizes on their weekends as well. But here's kind of the idea of what the format's going to look like. Scusa, they're going to have their timeline out for Orlando, I think, by tomorrow or so. Stars is they're still making sure that their tracks can fit what they want to do with it. So, Charlotte Motor Speedway is a new venue. You know what you're getting at with the other tracks they've already visited, like Trackhouse, Newcastle, Cincinnati. So, but they wanted to go and take a firsthand look at Charlotte from when I talked to Christian. So that's what they're trying to sort out. But both series moving forward with this, and it's going to put racers and teams in a box. There was a lot of talks over the weekend. I think mostly positive. I think there's reservations. I think they're fair. But where the conversation started, and again, part of it was in that podcast from last year, you can listen more in depth, was we see about a 20 to 25% uptick in viewership with X30 or whatever the marquee 125 class is. And then with Shifter at the regional level, it's in those two slots, KA Senior and 206 Senior. Then you kind of go down the line. Junior, Mini, Micro are all pretty close, right around the same area. And then unfortunately, of course, Masters is at the bottom of the viewership heap. And it's not to knock on the old guys. They just don't have as many grandparents and uncles and aunts tuning in. But it was pretty evident to me and us that X30, any senior drivers, they don't have any more or less parents, uncles, aunts watching them than the 8 to 10-year-olds in Micro to the 10 to 12-year-olds in Mini and et cetera. If anything, they probably got less. So if we're getting a lot of outside eyes, it's probably generic fans. Thought process was if we can move those two classes in a tighter time window for all of their sessions, we'll be able to capitalize on that viewership. We also looked at the data. Now, of course, the Miami Grand is a badass event, and Eric Jones does a great job with it. We've armchair quarterbacked it on here, but ultimately the shootouts at night, the night racing is super cool. But funny enough, the data doesn't lie, and it doesn't do always what we think it's going to do. I would have figured Saturday night would be prime time, and it might be. But based on how the last few years have been, prime time for us has actually been Sundays in the afternoons. Sundays in general, pull more than Saturdays. Even when you'd go back on apples to apples, like a Pro Tour weekend with two main events, the Sunday pulls about 10% more overall eyes than the Saturday does. So these guys are going to run from 3 to 6 p.m. or 4 to 6 p.m. ish, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. To SCUSA weekend, that'll probably transfer into Thursday. That's at least the pseudo plan. Um, by doing a split day schedule, you can kind of double your manpower a little bit. You can also take your driver for the afternoon and you can work them in the mornings. Um, and they're going to sacrifice the total number of sessions for some longer sessions, but it's going to be similar to what drivers would look like for those that are cars bound, which the SCUSA series is super cash heavy on the purse. The Star series is super contingency heavy. And the big part of the Star series is like the Lucas Oil Racing School. The champions are going to get to go and race, not just a test day, which is what they were able to get with the Skip Arbor School at the end of last year, but to actually go and compete in the Arrive and Drive series. And part of the staffing as well is to kind of limit costs. There's going to be some tire limits in the practice sessions into the warm up. And then for everybody else that's not a part of these classes, it's going to help us not overshadow them. Every stream, there's always one or two comments saying, like, hey, don't don't go side by side during my class to do an interview. Or even, I caught one during the warm-ups during Sunday that we cut away from a warm-up for a minute to do a full screen interview, and people were upset. So we'll still do the split screen stuff, but now there's no big brother classes overshadowing anyone else in the priority list. So we should, in theory, not just on the stream, but on the clips during the day, be able to give a lot more love to everybody else by having, okay, from 4 to 6 we're talking about X30 and KZ. Now in the morning group, KA is the king. Junior OKN at Stars, Junior X30, Junior KA at both, Mini Micro, even Masters, they'll get more love in this way by moving those guys completely removed from the timetable. And of course, they'll get help from them on the support side. So that's kind of the idea. Is if we could get the classes that pull the line on eyeballs into a good time window, if we could make it where the teams can kind of save a little money potentially. I mean, you can fight the battle of limiting costs in racing, and it sometimes goes the wrong way. So we'll see how it goes. But I think everyone's going in with a pretty open mind on it because it's gonna be a moving target. So here's what the SCUSA weekend looks like. I'll show the Stars weekend in a little bit. I know that one loosely, but again, those guys want to confirm a couple things at Charlotte Motor Speedway. So I'm sure as we get closer to the Stars opener, we'll talk more about that. But this is what it's going to look like for SCUSA Orlando. Thursday and Friday, and the Thursday is not 100% confirmed, but that's what they're shooting for. That's the plan. There's still more to go, but this is how it should work. There's going to be two 30-minute practices each day. Thursday is the track practice day. Friday is the official series day. Friday is when a lot of limitations come into play in terms of the number of tires and the number of engines. Thursday is track run, a little less regulated, and a lot of the specifics on that are probably going to be published in the coming weeks as they get through it. I was a part of it, obviously, because we push big for a format like this. I think this, is something cool that could be applied to the right places. Some guys are even talking about trying to do something different for CKNA Grands. CKNA is in a whole other world than this, though, because it's double the entries at every single CKNA national, it looks like, this year. I'm sure Pittsburgh will probably touch 500 too. So here at 250 to 300 entries, you can play with the schedule a little bit easier. But two 30-minute practices each day. There's about an hour to hour 20 between the start of the next practice, so you can make big overhaul changes in between each one. And then, of course, you'll have time at the end. The 30-minute practices have a hot grid, and there's a caution period at the 15-minute mark at halfway to retrieve any go-karts that break down. Because unlike car racing, where you can pull off to a gap in the track and slowly get removed back to the pits, don't have that. So at the halfway mark in every 30-minute practice, they can clear the racetrack. But, they'll be able to do a slew of changes. The limit is 3 sets of tires for the SCUSA weekend practice-wise. And that includes the warm-up session that they'll get on Sunday. So they basically got 3 sessions, 3 sets of tires. If you want to save a set of stickers for Sunday because you're going to start your main event on stickers, you can do that. If you want to scuff them in the final practice to do a mock quali run, you can. The really exciting part, that at least the practice, that I think is the trickiest thing. That's the biggest shock to the system, it seems like, on the operations and team side. But Saturday and Sunday, everyone seems pretty stoked for. So Saturday is really exciting to me with how we're going to do qualifying, with a 2-stage qualifying, group split. Top 6 advance to stage 2 to set the grid for the pre-final. Sunday's really straightforward. There's going to be a warm-up during lunch break, but there's going to be roughly 15 minutes of pre-race and 5 to 10 minutes of post-race of X30 and of shifter. Saturday, there's going to be a gap for the semi-pro class podiums after qualifying before the pre-final to give guys time to work on the go-karts. Talking earlier in the show, right, these pre-finals and finals will be longer by about 20 to 30% from what the semi-pro guys are going to run. So, the pre-final Orlando, I looking at it's going to be around 8 to 12 laps for the semi-pro classes. It's going to be around 15 or so for the pro classes. The main event, instead of being 20 laps for the other classes, will be looking to be 25. The goal is to, again, just give a little bit of tire degradation, especially in X30. I think will make a big difference on cleaning up that stuff. I don't know how hugely necessary it is in shifter, but we'll kind of see. But in the X30 class, we've kind of hit a point, it seems like, at least it feels like, where they're fast enough that we need to do something to kind of put the driver in the seat a little more to control it. And so if it can come down to tire wear, because we can't add more horsepower, that should do it. And hopefully it'll keep them thinking a little more and cleaning up the racing. Qualifying, Kyle is a big IndyCar fan, should like it. I like it.
I'm not huge in IndyCar's qualifying format.
You don't like IndyCar's qualifying format?
It's
I
probably
think it's
not the
pretty
right
cool.
thing to say as we're about to go into this, but
I think it's a good format. What's wrong with you? Okay, so whatever, man. I think this is cool, dude. I don't know why. Why don't you? What do you
well,
not like about IndyCar's format?
is the second group of this? Is it like, are they sending everybody out on track, or is it single kart runs?
They're gonna send them out in gaps. It won't be
Gaps.
just a single car run.
Okay.
Yeah. I originally would have loved to see like the 12th and 11th seeds go, and then the 10th and the 9th seeds go, and then it's like only 1 or 2 on track, but it just gets faster and faster and faster, and you're like, you could have a camera on the guy on the hot seat. I think that would be pretty cool, but
Okay,
that's not
so
how we're gonna do it.
this will be perfect because I'm gonna break this down and you tell me if I'm right or wrong. So
All
the
right.
thing I don't
Yeah.
like about IndyCar's qualifying format
Yeah.
is the way that they do, like, because they don't set the groups based on practice speeds.
Oh,
I'm
I
pretty
thought they
sure.
did.
No, they
Oh,
just
maybe they
like
don't.
release it. I'm pretty sure because what ends up happening is they take 6 from 2 groups, and
Yep.
so then it's like if I'm in group 1 and no, if I'm in group 2, because group 2's, if I'm like 7th or 8th in group 2, I probably ended up setting a faster time than 6th or 5th place in group 1. But oh, look at me,
Uh,
I'm screwed. I'm starting 19th. Like, I don't know how many times there's been guys who like have top 10 pace who just end up being like 19th. And it's like,
I could have sworn they. Well, I didn't do my research on it. I assumed that they split them off that, but if they split it
they
randomly, that's what we won't be doing here.
they might have started to not do that, but I don't know.
They should.
All I know is there's
That's
a
what we're
lot of,
gonna do.
and the way that they also do like we these are problems that we aren't running into here, so I'm for it.
Yeah. So yeah, that here's a lot of people had time to read it, so we'll break it down. Pretty simple. Final practice on Friday, the second round of practice on Friday, that full 30-minute session. Times from that session splits you into either Group A or Group B. First, third, fifth, seventh in practice 2, they go to Group A. Second, fourth, sixth, eighth, whatever, they go Group B. That's going to be your qualifying group. You've got to go top 6 in that group. The reason behind that is when we do it in a built for TV format, with qualifying as it is right now with a slow group and a fast group, every once in a while, and more often than not, probably have one decent guy in the slow group and then all the good guys in the fast group. So as cool as it is to give love to everybody, if we're running a pro show It should be about trying to make it where every session's important and it's marquee names and headline names in each session. This does that. This divides our group in half and accomplishes the goal of trying to talk more about the grid, more about the field in each session, and makes each session equally important and fun. And I'm optimistic that it's going to clean up some of the back off for a toe lap at probably for sure Orlando and maybe Cincinnati. We'll see what it does at Newcastle if it's enough. But splitting the field in half, where you've only got to go basically top 12 overall pace wise, I think you'll see the Joe Turney's, Ryan Norberg's not care if they give someone a toe and not try to get one and just run on their own because all they got to do is go top six. So top six advantage to stage two. If you don't advance, you're locked into the lane. And this was something that we had a team meeting with Friday night at the Winter Series last week and asked a bunch of the team owners that have drivers in these classes of which way they'd want to do it. Because there's two ways. You could do it where you do a 101% rule if needed, if the track conditions massively change from Group A in stage one to Group B, and evenly weight it. And so the way that the 101% rule is, it's you're trying to equal out. You find a multiplier from, let's say, Group A runs a 50.5 and Group B runs a 52.5. You find whatever multiplier it is to get the 52.5 to be even to the 50.5, and you apply that down the second group to balance the groups kind of after the fact. It's not the most fair way to do things. It's a bit awkward because you just might have had a guy in one group or the other run a burner lap, and you really only see it in the rain. But that way you could do an even blend. And the reason I say that is because, again, the track might change a little bit, so it's unfair for a guy that was seventh and seventh and eighth of Group A might go better than seventh and eighth in Group B. So in this case, you're just kind of focused on your group. It is what it is. If you end up getting slotted into the even side group, and you go seventh, sucks. You're going to start 14th. You're locked into the outside row for the pre-final. But truth be told, you get back to row 7 and on back in a pre-final, it doesn't matter that much whether you're inside or outside. You're just kind of there. So those guys get locked in, and then the top 6 from each group, they go to basically an impound. They can add or remove tire pressure. That's it. And then they're going to line up after the pro. It's going to be stage 1, X30, Group A, Group B. Stage 1, Pro Shifter, Group A, Group B. Then the X30, stage 2 or Super Pole comes up. Green, white checker quali. At Orlando, that means they go green, as soon as they hit the finish line for 2 laps. They're going to gap them. You can't try and Mickey Mouse the gap. If you put your hand up, act like there's something with your engine, you better make sure you build yourself a big enough gap, because if they think that you are going to get a tow or got a tow on your lap gets disallowed, you automatically drop down the leaderboard. So they've got to hold the gaps. And again, this is trying to make it all about the driver and less about tow. And then that will set the first through 12 starting positions in the pre-final. And then the tire sets allotment, it's basically 5 maximum for the weekend, 3 for the practices, the 2 practices Friday and the warm-up. Thursday doesn't count, turns to the tire allotment. And then you have 2 sets for the race weekend, just like you'd have 1 for Saturday and 1 for Sunday in the old style format. You're going to probably just want to qualify and run your pre-final on your set 1, and you're going to probably want to know the main. You won't have the option to switch and put a set of stickers on for the Super Pole. You're staying in the impound. The question would be if you wanted to go to sticker tires for the pre-final. I don't think you're going to see any guys do that. But that's the quali format.
So why aren't we doing single car runs in qualifying?
Time constraints.
What did it? Okay, Newcastle makes sense for me, but at least Orlando, I feel like we could do single. What's that gonna take? 10 minutes for 6 carts?
12
carts. Minutes. Well, no, because it'd be the stage 2 would be, it's top 6 from each group, so yeah, okay.
Yeah. Because the reason you go that far deep is you don't want guys to try and sandbag and not go to stage 2 to save 1 heat cycle and 2 laps on the tires. That's why the laps are limited, and that's why it goes far back to 12th. You're not going to want to save 2 laps on your tires to start 13th. But yeah, I would have liked to see, and it could happen later in the year. It doesn't really make a difference. It might be a little better for TV, might be not, to do more single car.
Where's our Firestone Fast 6, man?
Then we don't need to run them again. It's already a stretch to run them this much
Yeah.
on the same set of tires without saying, all right, now you got to get a new set of tires, or the series has to provide a new set of tires. Then we're just decreasing the original goal of limiting the cost. So this is a cool thing. It doesn't bring the costs up. Let's go to what do I have next here? I think I have the stars format. So the stars format's a little bit similar, a little bit different. Same concept. It's going to have these guys in the afternoon, OKN and Pro Stars, KZ. Um, they're looking to try and do a very similar hot pit setup. I don't know if that'll happen. I came out of the meeting with Scusa here. We'll have meetings with Stars, and they're closer, but they're doing their treks, P's and Q's right now to make sure their weekend goes. So this is loosely what I've gathered from talking with them and what they're going to look like. The practice thing is going to be what it'll be. They're going to qualify on Friday though, and I think they're just going to do a standard qualifying session. But then Saturday's going to have more races. They're going to have a warm up on Saturday as well. These guys will not at the SCUSA format. And then the Stars guys are going to run 2 pre-finals. They're calling, Christian was loosely calling them motos, so that's what I have it listed as. But it's 2 pre-final distance heat races, set off of qualifying, and then the merge of those 2 will set the main event. So that's their difference. But as you can see, you count the number of sessions. If you're counting number of sessions against entry fee at the regular Stars race or the regular SCUSA race, you're going to see these classes do have less total sessions. However, the total practice time they're going to have is, and total time on track is, minute by minute is going to be about the same, if not longer. But ultimately, you could go to these classes, you could cut time on track to give them more interviews, more exposure, more time to promote all of the guys in the class, and give them more prizes. Because again, if you put them on track less, they're spending dollars less, and you're putting them in lights more. So again, USPKS, they with Mark, he's kind of waiting on the sides to see how it goes. Scusa's willing to take the leap. Star's willing to take the leap. That's really cool. It's been really stressful to try and keep everybody happy, which is impossible. And I wanted to at least have us do a show about this, explaining it, what it looks like, because inevitably it's such a radical change to what we've done for years and years and years with the sport. And will it make costs go through the roof? I don't see how it could do that, but maybe. There's definitely some ways where if you don't keep an eye on it, it could. Could it just blow up? Maybe. Hopeful. My fear. I'm perfectly cool. People go and screw Kart Chaser for first in the format. I just hope it doesn't knock any series down a peg. But I don't think that. And talking with as many team owners as we have, I mean, it sounds like it's all together, and I know for a fact that for our viewers that are watching, they're stoked about it. So, I'm hoping that it's going to be really, really good, TV and whatnot. But it's a big change, man. It's going to be something.
Is there a time in this in karting that like when's the last time you think we've had a change this big roll around?
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, series change formats from time to time, but they're all usually proven formats. Um, I mean, Supernats tried a hot grid quali a few years ago. Didn't really work out because you only had one set of tires, so you just waited till the last 3 minutes and drove. Um, there's been hot grid sessions in the past. Coda still does one for their final practice for 15 minutes. You can come in and do a small change. And USPKS was 2 finals, went to 1. So there's been little changes, but no one's tried to do something I think this great. I mean, really, I guess the closest you could say is probably Miami Grants doing the shootouts. That was Eric Jones being a racer, trying because those could have gone sideways too. Those went over so well that first year that everybody wanted to do them by year 3. But to wholesale change a race weekend is pretty mega, and it's a testament to. It's cool to have the race series year the way that we do. It's cool that the teams are open to doing these kinds of changes. I think really as trepidatious as everybody is about it of how it's going to work and a lot of particulars, I it feels like everyone's towing the line the same way, and that part's exciting, because I think guys are on board with where the sport can go. Um, you know, one guy said to me over the weekend that if you want to look at how we should do things here in the U.S., just look to Europe. And my counter to that is that if Europe was doing stuff so right, our sport would be massively bigger than what it is. But it's not. We should not be the second biggest streamed race in the world at Supernats on our second year at doing it. You know, we should be way behind where those guys are. I think they do some stuff well. I think they do some stuff not so well. I know I've been very vocal about it in the past. So, uh, man, my hands are sweaty talking about this. I hope it's going to go good. I think everyone's kind of going in the same way, but
I'm not ready for nervous all over the place Xander at the first Pro Tour round. Let's just say that.
Yeah, I'm gonna try and reel myself in to who knows? Maybe we'll bring Henry and bring our boy back so I can do one less thing. But yeah, there's just so much to it, and tracks aren't, I mean, we talked about it on here too. Like when you talk fans, when you talk anything with a format, tracks aren't necessarily always structured for it. Orlando going in is going to be a tricky one. That's why Stars is also looking at Charlotte. See, Cincinnati, easy setup to do a hot grid. Newcastle, very easy setup to do a hot grid, and two very motivated, in depth in the sport track management groups and ownership groups that are down to take some big swings. So that part's cool. And not that Orlando isn't. Orlando's just tight fit, but that's also a very motivated track owner that loves doing new things. Andre's going through with his FIA, track approval process, as expensive as something like that is to the guys in suits and ties over there that run global motorsport. But I mean, we're doing our part to ramp up, right? We brought instant replays in. We've got the new ticker we debuted at Supernats, and we're expanding all these new events. We've never done a double national event before. We're going to do that now with the CKNA Spring Nats and the Norberg National Invitational. I think that's going to be really cool. I'm excited. What else is wild about CKNA? I just got a text today. So obviously Connor and Brent are running. Tony
Yeah.
Breidinger is going to go run the CKNA
Oh,
Spring Nats
really?
in Charlotte too. Yeah.
Stacked lineup.
Yeah. That one's huge. The fact they've opened it up, they're bringing lights in. We're using the track lights. I don't know how they're doing lights. I didn't ask Greg how they're doing lights, but I know that the announcement said they're doing lights. Called Greg, said how is this going to work? How late are we going to run? He's like, all right, we're running till this. This is our plan. If we're running till the end of the Norberg race, we've done something really wrong, and you don't want to talk to me. I said, okay. So and there's some cool. Cool stuff at Charlotte. Charlotte has a decent sized TV screen around the racetrack as well. Maybe we talk to those guys, see if we can't put our stream up there.
That'd be cool. 'Cause that's right next to the
Be,
go-kart track where it is in the back straight, I'm pretty sure. So that would
more or less. Go-kart track's pretty deep into 3, but the paddock will be more centered to it. Because it's halfway down the back. Or is it further into 3?
I think it's further into 3. I don't know. I went to Charlotte for the Coke 600 in 2010, and I'm pretty sure they put in that screen in 2011, so I never got to see it. So I think it's further into 3 from what I know in video games and stuff. So
yeah. Bryce was asking on the new tire review. So for the new tire that MG and Avinco got coming out, it's laying down rubber. It is faster, and it's moving away. I think I don't want to speak without not knowing what the blend of rubber is versus more synthetic versus more real rubber, but I can tell you this lays down rubber more than before. But we don't have an accurate read from February because outside of the heavy rain that we started to get by Sunday, there was still Levanto rubber laid down that was super sticky and slowing the guys down actually a little bit, but throwing off the setups completely. So I don't know. We'll get some drivers to talk about the new rubber when it.
The thing I do remember was in the January race. It actually made the juniors only a few tenths off of the seniors. Like Ardila's could have ran like 10th in senior, and because junior was running on the new tires and senior wasn't. So like
Yeah.
that was like whoa.
Yeah, we have no idea what I mean the 2025-ish whatever laps in Orlando. It will that no, that one won't be on the new tire, I don't think. I think we'll have to wait till probably USPKS Houston for the new MG Yellow. So we'll see what the new MG Yellow looks like when we get to Speed Sports. I think by April we get those guys onto the new tires. How long that lasts and what that looks like, who knows? Um, but yeah, we're busy these next couple weeks.
Oh yeah,
Uh, yeah,
we could.
we've got doubleheader next weekend, doubleheader weekend after SCUSA Pro Tour opener, um, and what do we have? Then we have a gap because then it's the Rock Winter Tour finale.
I think we have a
So
solid gap
yeah,
finally, thankfully.
no, it's
After
not
that
that
one,
solid.
it's like a week or
After that,
two.
it's a doubleheader again. It's a big gap to the USPKS race, but it's a doubleheader on the end of March. Rotax Trophy West number 2, TSRS number 2. Um, but yeah, we got a lot for all those. So um, yeah, excited to get to the CKNA race. So I'm may drop in on the early part of the week, then I'm staying down. You're going to Orlando. Um, Trev will be up there. We'll have a lot of our guys up there. Yeah.
You're gonna be in Orlando, right? You'll be in
Yeah, but
Orlando.
I may go up to Charlotte midweek to kind of do setup because we've never gone there before
It's true.
to see. There's so many nuances in talking with Greg. It's so interesting about going to a track like that. Of, obviously they've got the infrastructure for everything. If you sniff and if you walk over a random corner in the paddock or in the anywhere in the infield of Charlotte Motor Speedway, that's the crown jewel of SMI, right? So like there's going to be fiber internet and there's a PA system that works really good. So how can you get into that? Because they haven't gotten into that before. And, the mic can go anywhere in the infield because the mic goes off 5G through their, audio over internet setup. How do we tap into that? That's like kind of a look behind the curtain for people that don't know that when we go into these racetracks, it's always a little bit different everywhere. And we've got like a full big yellow bin of, different cords, right? And the technical aspect of like how you get into where the mic is live to the PA to the stream as well without a delay by like a split second on the camera syncing up. In our case, um, we had to back onto our hotspots, which we have hotspots from like a bunch of different plans right at Homestead because the Homestead internet got a little shoddy for a second. And what's cool, most people don't know about the Homestead track internet, that's beamed from Daytona Beach at ISC headquarters down to the speedway there. It's not like they have their own internet line. They're shot internet through the air. Uh, and I and then the camera connectivity and everything. There's little bits of you know basically noise with how much signal. If there's a lot of other people throwing radio signals across the racetrack, does stuff need to be hardwired? Can it be wireless? And can it be reliable? So I may go up there for the middle of the week because I want to take a look at how the PA setup will be. And um, it's a miracle that they, from talking with Greg, they're able to run that event as smooth as they have in the years past. Because with the timing building being in the center, it's at the end of a straightaway on the side, on the left driver's left, and with the 206 pipe, it shoots out to the left, right? So like, well, I guess most engines shoot to the left. Only Rotax goes to the right, but you have the loudest like timing billing in the U.S. like by far. So even making sure that we have noise canceling like puffs on the mics and dialing the mixer in will be part of the challenge of going into a place like Charlotte Motor Speedway. But hopefully the PA mic works good and we can move around a little bit and show a lot of the event. I mean, there's going to be racing, it sounds like, from 8 a.m. till way after dark with a lot of people. But I think that's why I may go up to Charlotte for a little. midweek, and then pop back down to the Nürburgring race with Orlando, which is easy. It's also easy going to a permanent kart track that's just a kart track because it's like one owner or maybe one GM. Charlotte Motor Speedway, there's a lot of people. Even talking
Oh
with
yeah.
Greg, he's like, I need to let them know that you yourself, Xander Clements, is showing up because they don't have, they don't lock the gates, but they have security, and security will not let you in no matter what you tell them. It's not just one guy. There's the whole corporate company to get through.
We're going to New Orleans next week. We haven't talked any about that at all this episode. I'm personally really excited to go eat some crawfish next week. How about you?
Uh, I'll be excited when we get there. We got to um we got to service the RV, pack everything up, and get over there. So I'll feel excited when we get to the
Yeah, you have
to
a
the
full.
venue.
That's right. You have a full merry-go-round next week.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess we're going. So we're going. I fly out. We'll fly into the rock race by Sunday afternoon. Doing our deal with Simcraft. We have their simulator that we're taking around to national events. We've got to move stuff to Orlando to prep for the national there. Then we stop at Orlando and move over to NOLA. That'll be like over a couple days. Got to get the trailer, or not trailer, but the RV serviced um, on the Monday. So get to Homestead, pack up because our guys at Pride are doing the merch for the rock race. So they've got all the stuff out. So flying to Homestead, work out with them. May end up probably gonna end up get a U-Haul to help with the extra load. Move stuff into that. Monday go to Orlando, go to the service center for the RV. Then work our way over to Orlando. Then work our way over to New Orleans for everything. If we can get to Orlando Monday, maybe Tuesday, maybe whatever. To prep for the Nürburgring race, prep for the Pro Tour. We go to NOLA and then come back after NOLA, go there, and then that's that week after NOLA is obviously the week of the Nürburgring Nats in Charlotte, CKNA. So then I may go to CKNA once we get back into Orlando on that Monday, Tuesday, and go to Charlotte for Wednesday or Thursday of setup if I feel like I need to. Then come back. Brandon's got to do setup at Orlando after we tear all the stuff from NOLA. So there's a lot to move around the next few weeks. But the teams are in the same boat. I mean, Nash is going to TSRS. Bunch are going that way. Bunch of TSRS teams are going to the CKNA race. Handful at Art are probably going to Pro Tour to test that weekend. It's just a busy part of the year until things kind of spread out in April and races kind of come back home where everybody's at. So as much as we get up on our soapbox about what we're going to be doing, I'm home right now. You're home right now.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people watching this from dinner or at a hotel for the rock race this weekend. So it's a busy year, busy start to the year for everybody. And it'll only slow down at a little hot point through the season.
Yes, sir. It's so busy.
Yeah. I'll let you watch the duels now. All right. We'll be good. We'll let everyone else hop off. I just wanted to come on and talk a little bit and catch up with everybody. It's always good to have good news to break to you guys. So it was so fun to get to do that this week. I will get our updated scheduled poster up shortly. Yeah, that's the breakdown of kind of what's coming your way at the Stars and Scooters races this year. To get to add a CKNA puts us at 41. There's more races we may add. There might be some more races that you don't expect, but at least we're gonna be busy. So yeah, I wish we could have to go from wishing we could fill the schedule up to being way too filled is crazy. But it's cool. It's good news, and hopefully the entries you saw in January, the hype that we're getting to go to all these other places, the growth that all you guys tune in. Is going to fan the flames for this year. It's at least a promising start that no matter what series are doing good, and hopefully we can get that to trickle down to the clubs, and it's part of some other plans next year. We've got the national stuff rolling good. And we're on the right page there. We need to be on the right page and growing for every aspect of the sport and getting new guys in. And I don't know. It's an exciting time, I think. It's a scary time right now, but I think it's an exciting, scary time with how busy it is and with so much newness coming in. But I think it's good. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you guys in a month-ish, whenever Kyle and I can get around and do this again.
Whenever
We're home.
we just went over how busy we are. Whenever we're gonna try the first Wednesday of the month, but maybe that'll be on a race weekend. Who knows?
Yeah. We'll figure that out. Thanks for watching, though, guys.